The following program was recorded at ARC Advisory Group's annual World Industry Forum in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to welcome Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, Russell Goodman.
Hello. Asset information management. Joining us to talk about that topic today is Sid Snitkin, Vice President and General Manager at ARC Advisory Group. Sid, welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
Sid, very briefly, for those that might not be entirely sure what asset information management is, what is it? What is AIM?
Well, to answer that question, I really have to first describe what asset information is. And asset information is all of the information that organizations need to manage their assets, operate them, to maintain them, to improve them, and so on. And the information that's involved will vary a lot by the type of assets somebody has, the organization they're in, and things like that. But in general, what it includes are things like instructions on how to install it, how to operate it, how to maintain it all safely. There'll be historical information on how it was used and what it was used for and how did it perform and things like that. And just another comment on asset information is that when I say that, I don't think people always understand the scope of what we're talking about. If you have a manufacturing facility, for example, you could have hundreds of thousands of assets. And for each of those assets, you need a set of documents telling you how it works, what's in it, things like that. And then you need almost, not as much, but a very large number of drawings to show how they're interconnected, how they interact, so that you can troubleshoot them and manage them. So that's asset information. Asset information management then is simply making sure that you have good asset information, that everybody has asset information and the asset information they need to do their jobs. This is operating people and maintenance people and engineering people and so on. And there's two issues there. One is managing the quality of information, which is a real key thing. And when you have all this information, it gets very complex because there's lots of relationships and things. You have to classify it, you have to relate it and things. And the other issue is making sure that people can use it. And you have lots of different people who use it in lots of different ways. They even think of the assets in different ways. You can imagine a purchasing person would think of it quite different than a maintenance person or an engineering person. So you have to deliver the information to them, help them find it, make sure they get it in the format they want, and things like that.
You know, you mentioned a manufacturing facility that might have thousands of assets where this is an issue. And I guess that leads me to ask this. Is asset information management something that only large, complex manufacturing concerns will be concerned about? Or is this something that virtually any company should be concerned about? And is it something that crosses into every vertical as well?
That's a very good question, Russell. A lot of people have that impression, and it couldn't be further from the truth, that it's just manufacturing facilities. For example, the industry that you were associated with a lot, logistics and supply chain. When you think, one of my favorite movies is Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. And you know, that's how you move materials. That's how you move goods.
Yes.
And if you think of the assets involved in moving those goods, they're all capital assets. They all have to operate right. They all have to be maintained. They have to be cared for. And if you think of logistics in general, you know, you're also including an enormous number of warehouses, ports, docks, terminals, things like that, with an enormous amount of equipment. So, I mean, it's completely relevant to an industry like that. You know, the other industries, again, which is a non-manufacturing in my definition, you might have something like the construction industry, the military, defense. It's a very big issue in the defense industry. And another one is like infrastructure. You know, one thing we don't think about, it's a different issue. One thing is to talk about, everybody can kind of picture machines and equipment, you know, cranes and things like that. But when you talk about infrastructure, you're talking about bridges and roads and pipes. And if you don't know where those pipes are, and you don't know what they're made of, and you don't know what their condition is, you have a very serious situation. I happen to live in DC, and just recently I saw in the news that there was a 50-inch, if you can imagine, a 50-inch water pipe in DC, and it burst. And literally on the news, what you saw is it destroyed a building. It knocked a building, the walls down. And cars literally were lifted off the road and blew apart. So, I mean, it's a very serious issue for industries like infrastructure. It's a very big issue, big problem. So it's got very broad relevance.
You're entirely right. Supply chain is very dear to my heart. Logistics very dear to my heart.
As mine, I used to specialize in it.
Which reminds me, though, I mean, when you bring up supply chain management, certainly many companies that are involved in the area that we specialize in already have things like customer information management, product information management solutions, and that sort of thing. So if they've implemented these solutions, is there still a need for them to look into AIM?
Well, asset information is different than the other kinds of information. I mean, it's different in customer information. It's different in product information, particularly in the context of a supply chain. But there's a lot of similarities. So the first question answer is yes, they do have to consider asset information. But the good news is there's a lot of things that are the same. I mean, when you think of managing asset information, you're talking about managing data and documents and relationships, and you have those same kind of concerns. You have to worry about quality and security and customer information and product information. What you need is, what people have to do is simply augment what they have. I mean, everybody has IT infrastructures today, but it's augmenting it with some additional software to deal with special content, things like 3D drawings or 3D models or maps and global GIS systems and things like that. But otherwise, it's very relevant. And just one other point is that one of the things that I try to tell people is, you know, often people are afraid of implementing a new information management system. It's a big thing. But if you've already implemented those other solutions, you've learned the lessons, the hard lessons of how to implement systems. And so you can really do AIM with very, very little risk, with no risk at all. I don't want to say none, but there's very little risk.
Let me ask a question on behalf of the viewer. Let's say that he or she is saying to themselves, I'm interested, I want to look into this further. Now, who in my company should do this? What should they do first? Where should they go to get more information about AIM?
Well, usually the champion that you need should be somebody from the business, but it's very much an IT issue, and one thing we're seeing is IT organizations, CIOs and things like that, need to realize how much they can benefit their company by raising this point. But in the end, you need a business sponsor. Once you have that person, the place to start, a key point I tell everyone that's often mistaken, is that asset information management is not just a technology issue. There's a lot of strategy issues. You have to put in place people and processes and assign responsibility. Who owns the information? Who's going to take care of it? And put those in place. And then you can think about technology. And so the place that somebody starts is by making a strategy. First, they need to assess, do they have a problem? And then, you know, identify which important information is important to them. Take that, develop look and see where they have gaps, develop a strategy to address it, and then kind of launch it. And so that's the main place to start. But the last thing I would say, I can't help but say, is, you know, today there's a lot of people that kind of go off on this journey on their own, and there's no need to. There's no need to go off and go down the wrong path. There's a lot of information available, I mean, from ARC, but a lot of other sources as well, where people can learn. They can come to events like an ARC forum, like we're having right here, and you can talk to other people who are already doing it. I'm in a session tomorrow where we'll be talking about this, and you can talk to other people who would see what they've done and how that overlaps. So.
Well, Sid, you've probably sent now a number of people, I guess I should say, on this journey. Thank you very much for the information that you've given us today.
You're welcome, Russell.
That was Sid Snitkin, ARC Advisory Group, and he was talking to us not just about asset information, but about asset information management. Thank you for watching.